Welcome back to Career Clarity Unlocked. Today, we are talking about why the latest jobs report is scaring a lot of people, and also why it does not have to be bad news for your career. If you've seen the headlines about job losses, war, and oil prices and thought, OMG, is it now the worst time ever to make a career change? Then this episode is for you. If we haven't met yet, I am Theresa White. I'm a career clarity expert and 5-time certified career coach, and I'm the coach behind over 600 women who found careers that feel like, pinch me, I am actually getting paid to do this. So if you're ready for work that actually fits you and also pays you what you're worth, you're in the right place. Today, I am speaking directly to you if you're in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, if you are a female professional with about 2 decades of experience, and you are ready for a change. Of course, with all that experience that you've built, you don't want to burn it all down. You definitely don't want to start over, go back to entry level, or take a pay cut just to escape a job that drains you. You want to make a strategic career change that honors and leverages everything you've already built. Right now, the headlines are loud and scary. The US lost 92,000 jobs in February. Unemployment is ticking up, and we're dealing with a war, a completely unnecessary war that isn't just spiking mine and so many people's anxiety, but also pushing all prices higher. You've probably heard words like stagflation, which means low growth plus rising prices. And of course, it's so easy to think, I should just stay put and be grateful I have a job. But at the same time, you might still be feeling that nudge. This can't be it. This can't be what the next 10 to 15 years of my career look like. Most people are seeing these really scary numbers, but almost no one is explaining what they actually mean for a real person like you. Does a weak jobs report mean you'll never change careers? Does it mean that you have to accept less money? Or could this actually be a moment you can use to your advantage? Because every time something happens, there are winners and losers. There are going to be people who come out of this economically bad time better. And what are they doing differently from everyone else? This is what we're going to talk about today. So in this episode, we're going to decode the latest job report in plain English and translate it into what does it mean for your career change? And then we're going to flip the script and talk about how you can actually benefit from a slower job market as a mid or senior level female professional. First, I'll break down what's really happening in the job market without all the jargon and just the parts that actually matter to you and your current situation. Then I'll show you where the opportunities actually are right now for someone at a mid or senior level. Because, as I just said, there are always winners and losers in every economic cycle. And finally, I'll walk you through specific ways you can use this environment to your advantage so that you can change careers without starting over or taking a pay cut. And by the end of this episode, my goal is that you will stop feeling scared of the headlines and start seeing this as a strategic window that you can use. So if you've been doom scrolling economic news and quietly wondering, is it selfish to want more right now? Let's all take a deep breath together. Grab your coffee, your notebook, or just take me with you on your walk. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. Let's start with what actually happened in that February jobs report. Because once you understand the big picture, you will see why this isn't the end of your career dreams. It might actually be the beginning of your next chapter. All right, now let's talk about what actually happened in this jobs report. Because once you hear it in plain English, it feels a lot less mysterious, a lot more usable, and also less anxiety-inducing. So you probably saw some version of the headline, US economy loses jobs in February. But now what does that actually mean beyond the scary headline? So in February, instead of adding jobs, the US economy lost about 92,000 jobs. Economists were expecting gains, not losses. So this was a surprise to a lot of people. The unemployment rate nudged up to about 4.4%, and less people are even counted as looking for work. On top of that, when the government went back and revised late 2025 data, some months that actually had looked okay at first also actually turned out to be weaker. Fewer jobs than we thought, even some outright declines. Which is not a surprise because the economy and the labor market and the job market has been a disaster in 2026 under Trump. So when you zoom out, this is not just one weird month, but it's actually a pattern of the job market losing steam over several months now. So net, what does that mean? It means the job market has basically been flat for a month. We're not in a free fall recession, so I don't want you to freak out about that, where everything is collapsing. But we're definitely in a stall. There isn't a lot of forward motion, there isn't a lot of growth. And when we see things stall, that's when employers get more cautious about adding new headcount, especially in non-essential or experimental roles. Now, if you're sitting there thinking about a career change or you're currently going through a job search, you're probably feeling some of this. Feeling slower response rate, more ghosting, more competition per role, and all that, yes, that is our current reality. Now, those big numbers are kind of like a weather report, and you do want to look at the map underneath because not every sector is experiencing the same storm. There are huge fluctuations between different roles, between different industries. So first, let's talk about healthcare. Healthcare took a temporary hit in February because of a big strike. That shows up as job losses in the data, but it is actually more of a one-time shock than a sign that healthcare is dying. Over the last few years, healthcare has actually been one of the main engines of job growth in the US. So if you're pivoting into anything health adjacent, that could be learning and development for hospitals, leadership development in health systems, HR business partner for health tech, all of those are still very powerful lanes. But on the other hand, sectors like manufacturing, information, tech, parts of the federal government, and transportation and warehousing are cutting back. So that means fewer net roles in those industries and more competition for the ones that are open. And then there are also bigger, somewhat slower forces that are impacting all of this. The first thing that comes to mind is obviously AI and automation. And AI is reshaping roles, especially in the white-collar space. Companies are pausing and asking, actually, do we need a full-time person for this? Or can we redesign the work with technology? That doesn't necessarily mean jobs are disappearing overnight, but it does mean some roles get combined, some get upskilled, and some mid-level positions are harder to find. And then you've got all those trade tensions with, I don't even have words for the insanity of Trump and his tariffs. We have immigration crackdowns, which is another topic in and of itself. I'll spare you my rant on that. But all of that also makes planning harder for businesses and can slow things down. And on top of that, now we had to add this absolutely unnecessary war in Iran that is affecting global oil. When oil gets more expensive, gas gets more expensive, shipping costs go up, and that ripples through the entire economy as higher prices on everyday things. Economists are worried about something called stagflation, which means slow growth plus rising prices. So that pretty much means that the economy is sluggish and your money doesn't go as far as it used to. So underneath the headline, you've got a picture of companies feeling cautious. They're worried about costs, worried about the future, and about whether they'll need to cut later. And when companies feel like that, they tighten up hiring and get much more picky about who they bring in. Let's talk about what weak labor market actually means for you personally in your career change, in your job search, in your job security. So what that means is, yes, there are fewer new jobs postings overall, even if we still see a ton of jobs on LinkedIn or in Indeed. Some fields are hit much harder than others, so it also really matters which lane you're targeting. For most roles, especially at that mid and senior level, we do see a lot more applicants per job opening. We also see longer hiring cycles. Companies are cautious. They're looking for more interviews, more steps, more waiting, and then even more, we've put this role on hold for now. And you see job descriptions becoming these unicorn wish lists. Employers write them as if they'll only hire if they find the absolute perfect, low-risk, high-impact person. But what is super important is that cautious does not equal frozen, because employers are still hiring. Job offers are made every single day, especially into roles that solve urgent business problems, such as keeping great people, helping managers lead better, making teams more effective, making smart use of data and AI. So in other words, they are still hiring for the kind of work that mid and senior level female professionals are actually so brilliant at, if you know how to position yourself. So that is the backdrop of all of this. We're not in a collapse, but we're in a stall. Cautious, picky hiring instead of free-flowing offers. So now next, I want to talk about why that can actually be an advantage for you and how you can position yourself as one of the winners in this kind of market. Now that we understand the backdrop of all of this, I want to pause and talk about something that's just as important as the data. And that is about how all this feels if you're in the middle of it. If you're hearing all this and your chest feels tight, that makes total sense. We're talking about your livelihood. And you might be thinking, what if I get laid off and can't replace my income? Or what if I never find another role that offers me competitive pay? Or even, did I miss my window to pivot? Am I too old to change directions now? And all of those fears are 100% valid. Those are all rational questions when you're responsible for a household, a mortgage, or even just your own future. A lot of women at the mid and senior stage carry this quiet pressure that they cannot make a mistake. So here's the really important distinction we want to make. Your feelings are valid. There's no doubt about that. But we also want to look at the fact that they are not the whole truth. Historically, even in weaker markets, mid and senior level professionals with solid skills and clear values do land new roles. What changes in a market like this is not, is this possible? But it is how you land those roles and also how long it takes. So instead of telling yourself, it's over, I missed my chance, I want you to try on a different story. And tell yourself that yes, it is a harder market, so that means it takes more strategy and also a bit more patience. But no matter what, you are not starting from zero. You are bringing over a decade of experience, very valid experience, wins, context, relationships, maturity. That's a totally different situation from someone trying to break in with no track record or no experience. So yes, the market is slower, but no, it is 1000% not a death sentence if you want to make a career change. But it is an invitation to be more intentional, more targeted, and more honest about where you add the most value. Let's zoom out for a moment and talk about who tends to struggle most in a market like this and who still has leverage. So in a slower or stalling market, the people who tend to get squeezed the most are younger workers with very little experience, frontline and low-wage roles where there are lots of interchangeable candidates, And then also more commoditized roles, where it's really hard to see the difference between one person and the next. So those groups really feel the brunt of hiring freezes, schedule cuts, harder competition for entry-level or low-paying jobs. But on the other side, there is still a really strong demand for people who can lead teams and grow people, improve efficiency, and help companies do more with less, implement and manage change without creating chaos, and help organizations make real use of AI, data, and new tools without burning people out. These are the roles that sit closer to the business problems executives are losing sleep over. So let's take an example of a woman in her mid-40s, has about 20 years of experience, and is currently making $125K. That is a completely different category than a brand new grad or lower wage worker trying to get their first foothold. Because this person is already operating closer to that higher skill, strategic, and human-centered work. And that is the exact lane that you can move into intentionally. Higher skilled, human-centered, problem-solving roles. Think of it as helping leaders lead better, helping teams adapt to new tools and processes, helping organizations navigate change without losing their best people. These are the types of roles like L&D, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, HR business partner, internal strategy that stay super relevant even when the market is choppy. So when you hear we're in a weak labor market, I don't want you to automatically translate into no opportunities for me. It's way more accurate to think about it as this market is tougher on people without skills or direction, but it is more rewarding for people who can clearly solve important problems. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you about next. How to position yourself as one of those problem solvers who still has leverage, even in a slower economy. Now the question is, in a weaker job market like this, where are the actual opportunities for someone like you? I said this in the beginning. Every economic cycle has winners and losers. And a weaker market doesn't erase all opportunity, but it does concentrate it in different places. And right now, the winners are roles that reduce risk and increase stability for organizations. So let me name some roles and lanes that are especially powerful right now in this market. Those include learning and development, leadership development, manager enablement and coaching, organizational effectiveness, HR business partner roles, change management, internal strategy, and transformation roles. Because in this unstable market, what companies really need is to do more with less. They absolutely need to keep their best people from leaving. They need to help managers lead through uncertainty. And they need to have the ability to implement new tools, especially AI, without burning everyone out. So the roles I just named are the ones that sit right at the center of those needs. If you help managers get better, help teams perform better without adding new headcount, if you design better onboarding or learning, people ramp faster, make fewer mistakes, and stay longer. If you support change and transformation well, projects succeed the first time instead of getting stuck in resistance and rework. Just imagine to be the person who designs the leadership program that actually helps mid-level managers handle layoffs, AI changes, and remote teams with so much less drama. Or being the HR business partner who sits at the table with a business unit leader and says, here is a system of how we can restructure your team to hit your goals without burning everyone out. All of those are not nice to have roles in this climate. Those are survival and growth roles. Now let's look at the skills that are needed for those roles on the rise. Some of the most powerful ones at this very moment are 1, data literacy. Being able to look at data, for example, turnover, engagement, performance, learning completion, and use that to tell a meaningful story. Of course, another skill that is needed is AI-assisted work. Knowing how to use tools like AI to draft, analyze, and streamline work, not just to replace people, but more so to support people. Change management is another super important skill. Understanding how people move through change and how to design communication, training, and support around it. And then we have communication and coaching skills, holding hard conversations, giving feedback, facilitating groups, and supporting managers. So if you've been thinking about making a change into L&D, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, HR work, those are exactly the skills and muscles that make you stand out. And the great news is that they're all learnable. So now when you hear we're in a weak job market, you can actually say to yourself, yes, and this is a huge opportunity for people who can help organizations adapt, retain talent, and lead better. And that is the profile you're building into. Now looking beyond individual roles and skills, there are also bigger trends you can actually ride instead of be afraid of. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind here is AI. And it's so easy to hear AI and immediately think job loss. But there's another side to this. So many organizations are still totally confused about how to use AI without breaking trust, overloading people, or causing chaos. And the people who can help teams use AI responsibly, who can teach managers when to use it, how to talk about it, and how to redesign workflows around it, they become incredibly valuable. And this is a huge opportunity if you're drawn to L&D, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, any roles in that space, because you become the guide and not the person who's going to be replaced. Another trend that we're seeing is within stability sectors. Even when the overall market is flat, some areas keep hiring because the work is essential. Those include health-adjacent roles, essential services, certain B2B services and infrastructure, and you don't have to be a nurse or an engineer to get into one of those sectors, because all of those organizations and companies need people in L&D, HR, change management, internal strategy. So one smart move is to aim your skills at more stable industries instead of volatile ones that swing wildly with the economy. And if you want more guidance on what industries to target, I actually have a free industry guide that I offer on my website that allows you to narrow down the most aligned industry depending on what's most important to you. And I'll include the link in the comments. Third point is how companies are hiring is different as well. In this very conscious and slow market, employers lean so much more on contract roles, project-based roles, and temp-to-perm agreements. And I know that can sound scary and like less security at first, but it's also a huge opportunity and the best way to break into a new function without starting over. You might step into a 6-month L&D contract or an organizational effectiveness project or a transformation initiative as a consultant. And if you treat those contracts as a paid audition, you get to show your value, you build relationships, you collect wins, and those roles can often turn into permanent offers at or near your current pay. So, the big picture here is AI is creating new problems that people like you can help solve. Certain sectors are still hiring, even when the overall market is flat or stalls. And companies are using more flexible hiring models that can actually speed up a career change if you use it strategically. The next part I want to talk about is how do we translate all of this information into concrete actions you can take, such as how to position yourself as one of those problem solvers, how to tell your story, and how to use the slower market to your advantage instead of letting it paralyze you. One thing I see all the time is that job seekers are unconsciously in a please pick me mode. But in this market, the people who win show up as Here is the expensive problem that I am solving for you. So now, in order to position you as a problem solver instead of as a please pick me candidate, I want you to start by thinking about your last few roles and ask, where did you save money? Where did you save time? And where did you save people? And you have most likely already solved some really expensive problems. That could be, for example, retention. Did your teams have lower turnover than others? Did people stay because of your leadership? It could be onboarding. Did you create or improve a process that got people ramped up faster? It could also be process efficiency. Did you fix a broken process, reduce errors, or speed something up? Or it might be manager performance. Did you coach leaders, run trainings, or help a struggling manager turn things around? And obviously, it might be revenue or cost improvements. Did you help close deals, prevent client churn, or cut costs without hurting quality? The important thing with all of this is, it doesn't have to be something in your core job description. Maybe you were never expected or hired to create a onboarding process or to fix a broken process, but you did it anyway. And those are huge. And then you want to connect those to what companies really care about right now. And in a slower market, executives are obsessed with 4 things: productivity, cost control, keeping their best people, and making AI work for their companies, their tools, and their teams. So now your job is to identify what is the specific problem that you are solving, and then back that up with 3 to 5 problems that you've already solved, and then connect that to what you want to be doing next. And it's almost like making a business case for yourself. A very easy approach for doing that is the CAR method. C-A-R. Challenge, action, result. So you start with the challenge. Here was the problem. Here was the challenge. Then you move into the action. You explain what you did. And then you end with the result. Here's what changed. And you ideally want to back that up with numbers, even rough ones if you don't have specific ones. And that will move you out of the pile of the please pick me candidates and into this person clearly solves a real problem pile. In a cautious market, companies are also less likely to take a chance on someone trying to completely start over or reinvent themselves from scratch. But they are open to someone shifting or transferring into a new function where their past experience is clearly relevant. Some examples of pivots that I supported clients through recently is, for example, from operations to learning and development. This is a very realistic transition because you understand how the business actually runs and you can design trainings that match that reality. Or from people management to HR business partner, because you have already lived the manager experience and you can support other leaders. Another example is going from project management to organizational effectiveness or to internal strategy, because you know how to align projects, people, and timelines. When you're thinking about making a career change, don't ever think that you're starting at zero. You have experience, very, very valuable experience. And the role you're currently in is already the evidence that you're capable of operating at a certain level of scope and responsibility. So instead of applying to junior roles in a brand new field, I recommend looking for roles in the new function that match your current levels. That could, for example, be a leadership development manager role, an organizational effectiveness manager, an internal strategy manager, a transformation lead. These are the kinds of roles where your existing experience plus some targeted upskilling can be a very compelling package. Now, to make a career change work and possible in this market, you also need to have skills that are highly in demand in 2026. Skills that match where the world of work is actually at this moment. Some of the most important skills to upskill and really hone into are change management basics, understanding how people move through change and how you can support them through change. It also includes data storytelling and simple analytics. It doesn't have to be the most advanced data analytics skill. Even if you're just able to use Excel or Google Sheets to pull insights and turn them into clear visuals or narratives, it's very impactful. AI-assisted workflow design. So using AI to draft, summarize, outline, or analyze, and then plugging that into better processes for teams. Also, coaching and facilitation skills, leading workshops, guiding discussions, asking powerful questions, and holding space for group learning. And unfortunately, it's not enough to list those skills on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume. You actually want to show them. I mentioned this before, that in a slower, sluggish labor market, people don't want uncertainty. They want certainty. So when you show them that you can do it, they are so much more likely to actually want to have that conversation with you and bring you on their team than if you just tell them you do. Now, how can we show it? You can create a mini portfolio. It doesn't have to be huge. A mini portfolio is 2 or 3 items is already incredibly impactful. Those could include a workshop outline for a manager training you'd love to run or that you have run in the past. It could be a simple change plan for rolling out new tools or processes, or it could be a basic dashboard or data summary that tells a story about something like turnover, engagement, or training results. And you can either create those on real past work, or you can create those as hypothetical spec pieces that show how you think. On top of that, layer on a couple of targeted credentials that act as shorthand for employers. This could include a change management organizational development program from a reputable provider, maybe an LOD or instructional design certificate, or a course on data storytelling, people analytics, or HR for business, or AI for business. You definitely don't need a whole new degree. You don't need to go back to school. But you need to be really strategic and effective in your upskilling so that you can add on a handful of sharp, relevant signals that communicate to future potential employers that you speak their language and that you are in motion, that you speak their language and that you're already in motion. We all know that the slower hiring trends that we're seeing creates a ton of frustration amongst job seekers. But it also creates space to stand out. Right now, we're seeing so many applicants, more than ever, with all the new AI tools available to applicants that allow them to submit hundreds of applications a day. So recruiters are completely overwhelmed with the amount of applications they're getting. And they're not even considering any of those mass applications that are coming in. What they're looking for are for the few people that stand out. So instead of applying to 100 random roles, which I promise you does not work in this market, start by getting really clear. What are the industries and companies that you're targeting? Which are the ones that fit your values and your pay level and the type of work you're looking for? Which roles are you targeting? Be super clear on the roles you're targeting and the problems you solve. Career clarity is a non-negotiable in this labor market. So start with getting super clear about where you're going. If that is a challenge for you, I want you to go right now to the show notes, book a career clarity call with me so I can help you figure that out. The next thing you want to do is, now that you have a really clear target, you want to make sure that you customize your resume and have a really strong cover letter for each role you apply to. A really great way to customize your resume, not just for roles, but also for companies, is you can use AI and ask AI to analyze the language of that company's website. What are the terms they use? What do they care about? What language are they speaking in? And then enter your resume and say, okay, where on this resume can I incorporate this company's language? That already makes a huge difference of showing how much of a fit you are for their culture. And then on your cover letter, you need to be super clear in showing that you understand what the problem is that they are hiring someone to solve. And then you show that you're the solution to that problem. Step 1. Step 2, reach out to insiders. Ideally, if you have any former colleagues who work there, alumni, people in similar roles, reach out to them via LinkedIn or even via email. If you don't know anyone there, make new connections. LinkedIn is a goldmine for that. And then you ask them for short, specific conversations. Stay away from the vague pick your brain, but be very specific in the help and the support you're seeking from them. You want to specifically understand what challenges that department, that team, that company is facing. And one way to stand out, and you can add that to your portfolio as well, is to then follow up with a brief problem-solving one-pager. A simple document with your perspective of how you can solve the problem they are tackling. And in this market where applicants are sky high, the average effort per application is actually very low. So going that extra length makes you stand out so much, because that just makes you not another resume in their applicant tracking system, but it is the person who already started solving problems before they even hired you, the person who speaks their language, the person who understands their problem, the person who goes the extra length to make connections and talk to people inside. And that's the people that are being hired. Now we've talked a lot about the strategy and opportunities that exist right now. Before we wrap this up, let's also talk about something else that is really important, and that is how this all feels as you're going through this experience. You have very likely built a successful career. On paper, it maybe looks like you climbed the ladder, you're making good money, you're reliable, driven, ambitious. And also at the very same time, you might be feeling that the work you're doing is misaligned, boring, sometimes even meaningless. A lot of people tell me that they feel like 8 hours a day are being traded for a paycheck and not much else. And obviously, that leaves you feeling tired, burned out, and you might even be waking up in the middle of the night thinking about work, dreading Sunday evenings, and wondering, is this really it until I retire? So the thought about jumping into something else obviously crosses your mind. At the same time, there's also grief in letting go of the identity you've built. Maybe you're the go-to person right now, the one who always delivers. And then bridging that with the itch, that desire that you have that just won't go away, that there has to be more, that you know you're capable of more, of delivering something bigger, more creative, more meaningful work. And now on top of that, we're adding the slow, sluggish job market, and that amplifies everything. It amplifies your fear of leaving security, the fear of making the wrong move, the fear of not knowing what to even search for on LinkedIn. And you're probably thinking that you've been in this company for years, you might have not even have job hunted in a long time, you don't know what your transferable skills are, and then the fear of what if I make the wrong move and it doesn't work out. So what I wanted to remind you of is that feeling stuck, deflated, unsure, that really doesn't mean that you're not grateful for the role that you're currently in, but it points towards you having outgrown the chapter you're in. And the market being unstable and choppy doesn't erase your ambition, and it definitely doesn't erase your potential. It does mean that the path forward needs to be very intentional and strategic. But by no means does it mean it's impossible. You always have to remember that you are not starting from zero. You have over a decade of accomplishments, experience, wins, pattern recognition, emotional intelligence, and proof that once people hire you, they realize that you are absolutely capable. They realize that you can do a lot. Your power is in your judgment, your ability to navigate tricky people dynamics, your curiosity, your love of learning, and the way you care about doing meaningful, people-centered work. And if you're thinking that, I don't know where to go, I have a lot of interests and skills, maybe a confusing career trajectory, none of that is going to stand in your way. It's just the raw material that we're going to start with and shape into a clear, compelling story. And I want to be so clear in saying that in this market, in this economy where we're in, real security is not staying in a company that you've outgrown and calling it safety. I think we've all seen that over the last year or two, that this is anything but safe. What career security really is that you know who you are and what lights you up. That you are building skills that are relevant in 2026 and beyond. And that you have relationships and a really strong, compelling personal brand that makes you more than one of a gazillion applicants. And I know that you're not just chasing a different job. You are likely chasing that feeling of waking up energized, working with people who get you, doing work that matters, making at least what you make right now, ideally more, and not having to brace yourself every Sunday night. And that desire to be well paid and fulfilled, to make an impact and have flexibility, is not unrealistic. But it does make you ready for your next level. So instead of telling yourself you're stuck and you don't know what to do, tell yourself that yes, you are in a transitional place. And you're learning how to aim everything you've built in the past, your drive, your curiosity, your skills, your experience, towards a career that actually fits who you've become. And in the next segment, we're going to turn this into a concrete action plan so that you're leaving this episode not just dreaming about the future, but with a plan that actually helps you walk towards it. All right, so I want you to think of this as your 30-day career clarity in a week market challenge. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. The main thing is for you to keep moving. The first step, the basics for any of this to work, is to choose what's next for you. So you have to define your target roles and companies. And you want to narrow it down to about a bucket of 5 related roles and a list of 15 to 20 target companies. If any of this is a challenge for you, that's a sign you don't need to do this alone. Then you just pause right here and book a career clarity call with me. The link is in the show notes. This is my area of expertise. Once you're very clear on the roles and companies you're targeting, you got to get clear on the problem you want to be known for solving. You can ask yourself, what do I love fixing? People problems, process problems, change problems, strategy problems. And then list 5 relevant business problems that you have already helped solve. That could include retention, onboarding, process efficiency, manager performance, revenue or cost improvements. And that's where you look for patterns. Then in week 2, you're going to make your marketing match your value. So the second week is going to be all about the professional shop window. So this second week is all about your personal brand, about how you show up in this world of work. This week, you're going to update your LinkedIn and your resume so they are centered on outcomes and not just job duties. So for each role, you list 3 to 5 bullet points that all read like the mini case studies we talked about. Challenge, action, result. Now moving on to week 3. That's where you have to get out of your head and get into conversations. So this week, your job is to stop trying to figure everything out alone in your head. That isn't getting you where you want to go. You want to schedule a minimum of 5 conversations in your target field. That can be with former colleagues in similar roles, people you admire on LinkedIn, friends of friends already doing what you think you might want to do. You can keep those conversations simple. Those are 20 to 30 minute conversations, have 3 to 5 questions prepared, and your goal is to listen, learn, and build relationships. We're not even asking for a job on those conversations. And then, based on those conversations and what you're learning, start a mini portfolio project that shows how you can think in your new lane. Maybe you create a leadership workshop outline, a change plan for rolling out a new tool, or a simple before and after process improvement that you would recommend. Now we're moving into week 4, moving from clarity to action. Now you've put in the work on career clarity and relationship building. Now it's time to apply. And this is where you want to apply intentionally to 5 to 8 roles that are a great fit for where you want to go next, that fit with your values, your compensation need, and everything else that is important to you. For each of those applications, customize your resume, write a customized cover letter, and always, always, always move heaven and earth till you speak with someone at that organization. That is the only way we can guarantee that someone is actually going to look at your application. So find the hiring manager on LinkedIn, find the recruiters, find other team members, and get a conversation with them going. If at all possible, try to find a mutual connection or direct message. If at all possible, and there's a mutual connection, an alumni that can make a warm introduction, even better. Your goal here is to prove to yourself that you can take actual steps towards the career of your dreams, even in a slow and sluggish market. So yes, to wrap this up, the market is weaker. But I want to remind you one last time that in every slowdown, some people use the moment to reposition themselves for the next upswing. And this is your opportunity to be one of them. If you're realizing that you don't want to stay where you're at, but you're also not sure exactly where to go next, that is the exact crossroad that I help women navigate every day. If you want clarity on the right direction, the right pivot, and learn how to do it without sacrificing your income, I invite you to book a free career clarity call with me. The link to that is in the show notes. On that call, we'll look at your experience, your strengths and what actually energizes you, and your option in this market at your level and income. And then we'll map out a high-level plan for your next chapter so that you don't have to guess your way through hundreds of openings on job boards. Because when you're clear about your direction, the job market becomes so much easier to navigate. You know which roles to ignore, and you know which roles to go all in on, and you know how to do it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And of course, don't forget to join me again next week for another episode full of insights, inspiration, and actual advice on finding a career you love. Because you don't have to settle. Keep chasing what makes you come alive, and I'll see you back here next week on Career Clarity Unlocked. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Career Clarity Unlocked. If you're feeling stuck in that what's next spiral and are ready to finally break free, let's chat. You can book your free career clarity call where we'll uncover what's really important to you, tackle any obstacles holding you back, and map out your best next step. Schedule your free 30-minute call today on 𝗪𝗵𝗀coaching.com. And before you head out, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. If today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration, please leave a review. It really helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or on social media. Your support truly means the world. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.